Test, test, test.
Potato.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from Behind Enemy Lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Welcome, my co-host and producer, Fox Trevize. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. I'm excited today. I had a whole bang, like the energy drink. So, you know, I should be ready to go. Let's do this.
Yes, he got me hooked on bangs as well. I love them mango flavored ones. We're not sponsored, but we're open to it.
Yes. We're open to being sponsored by Bang.
As always, we have a great show for you tonight. But first, we would like to thank our sponsors. This show is only possible because of viewers like you. We're better than PBS, though. We would especially like to thank those who donate to us financially, including Kaylet, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, the White Lion, the Timber Wolf, the White Wolf, Adder Lupus, and all the Lupuses, all the wolves. Money isn't the only way you can give to us. We appreciate you liking, subscribing on DLive, Twitch, I guess even YouTube. But most of all, please go follow us on Rumble, which should be linked below.
We're also sponsored by Skype not working, and also my Droopy Boom Mic. Yes, we're sponsored by Droopy Boom Mics.
Yes. While we were in the green room, we totally have a green room. We discussed how long our notes are today, and how we should probably just stick to them. So let's get to them right away.
Alrighty. So we have a few opening funny comments today. So Alex Jones, as you may have heard, is in court right now. Well, sorta. He is at least having a trial about things and stuff, but he isn't necessarily in court each day to watch it himself, which may or may not be advisable if you are ever at trial. We haven't been covering the Alex Jones trial because, frankly, we don't really care, but also because even if we did care, there is not a shortage of far more relevant topics to fill our show notes with. However, some of the clips coming out of that trial are, well, let's just watch and see for ourselves.
You've called this judge a tyrant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you actually use that word a lot with your audience. You call people tyrants, don't you?
Only when they act like it.
Okay. And one way that you've been conveying to your audience that Judge Bellis has been acting like a tyrant is by showing her with lasers coming out of her eyes, right? You know you did that?
I didn't direct that. First time I saw it was in court.
Oh, so you've been watching this?
Yeah, I've been watching.
I do not
You
specifically
could just
recall.
watch from the stage.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
But you've been broadcasting your show during this trial, haven't you?
I have taped some of my show.
Let's pull up 477.
Full exhibit.
Is full?
This should be in already.
It is a full exhibit.
And what was it, Ron? 477?
477, Your Honor.
This is the tyrant you've been telling your audience about, right? Yep.
So, during the trial, Alex Jones is still broadcasting, and what he's broadcasting is the judge in his trial.
So I don't think you need to be legal counsel to realize this is not advisable.
This is not advisable strategy. Dyer and I are not lawyers. This is not legal advice, though we would advise you. This is not a good idea. However, very funny.
Yes.
I just
I'm
love
glad you
the,
did
I love this because this is like this. I think it's the same filming group that was filming the Rittenhouse trial. Because there's like professional like court TV filmers, and I just love the like slow pan across the room past the judge to the picture of the same judge with laser. Alex Jones, did you post pictures of the judge with laser eyes? I do not specifically recall.
Oh my god.
Alrighty. Another well, I don't know if this one's funny. It's less and less funny each time you watch it, but we'll just
It's
let
topical.
you guys decide. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Topical in the sense that it seems to always come up every week that Joe Biden's a pedophile, but here's the one from this week.
But guess what? We got a lot to do. Gotta say hi to me. We go back a long way. She was 12, I was 30, but anyway, this woman helped me get an awful lot done. Anyway.
Oh my god.
Alrighty,
How
well.
could he not, like, how's that him not intentionally making a joke about the fact that he's a pedophile, knowing that people are going to get the joke? That he's joking about him being a pedophile. It seems so intentional.
Yeah, see, and there's a lot of that stuff where they try to end up being like ironic about it, but they just don't really understand irony or sarcasm or innuendo. And also, it doesn't help that the innuendo and sarcasm is all actually true. Like when Trump's being self-deprecating, it's not about, I don't know, fucking a child, a 12-year-old child.
Yeah. Like his own son and daughter have verified that he is a pedo. We don't call him Pedo Hitler for no reason. So it's not funny to joke about, I used to doink kids, haha, apparently. No, it's not funny for you to joke about it.
Yeah, especially like when there's multiple accusations, and that's kind of like the defining
There's video
character attack.
evidence.
Yeah.
Like,
So no tact whatsoever, which is pretty regular and expected for Joe.
yeah.
All
right.
right. Well,
story?
our first story, a good lead-in, is about Joe Biden. So Joe waited patiently for Direwolf Media to be concluded with our broadcast last Sunday. And once we were concluded, he didn't want to, interfere with our viewership numbers at all. So we thank him for that. He broadcast an interview with 60 Minutes after our show last Sunday. And there were some interesting things that came out of that interview. And for being a show called 60 Minutes with commercials, it's apparently only 25 minutes. A little bit of I don't know, feel like false advertising or maybe too much advertising. First up was the question of, does Joe's brain work? Now, you might think you know the answer to that, but trust me, you do. Let's get to that clip here.
Do you remember Trump's 60 Minutes interview?
Yes.
So he mentioned
the one where they accused him of lying, and he goes, no, actually, that's true. And then it was fact checked as, yes, it was true.
Well, also that there was a very long recording that they only show a small portion of, and they cut together in a way to try to look like he was giving different answers to different questions. And Trump then released the entire video showing the full context and how they had deceptively edited the audio and video to make it look like he was giving different answers that would look bad for him. And I'm glad he took his own video to rebut that. Now, the reason why I brought that up is you have to know that the video you're about to see, the video from the interview that was released, is probably only, total of 10, 20 minutes of what was probably 4 hours, and them editing out all the worst things he said.
Yeah. They may have even asked him, what they do with Trump is, what they'll do with any figure that they're an adversary to, is just ask them the same question multiple ways, and then they will pick together the best way that the question sounded with the worst way the answer sounded. But for Joe, it's going to be the opposite, where it's going to be the best response that he had to that question. So let's watch this first bit here.
That remains to be seen.
Mr. President, you are the oldest president ever.
Pretty good shape, huh?
Which leads to my next question. You are more aware of this than anyone. Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me. I mean, honest to God, that's all I think. Watch me. If you think I don't have the energy level or the mental acuity, then that's one thing. It's another thing of just watch and keep my schedule. Do what I'm doing. I think that, I don't, when I sit down with our NATO allies and keep them together, I don't have them saying, wait a minute, how old are you? What did they say? It's a matter of, that old expression, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. I mean, I respect the fact that people would say, you're old. But I think it relates to how much energy you have and whether or not the job you're doing is one consistent with what any person of any age would be able to do.
Okay, so one quick thing. He said, what do foreign leaders around the world, they don't go up to him and like, oh, wow, you look old. Actually, they thought you shit yourself when you talked to the Pope. You would get lost going to different functions around the world. You've been caught falling asleep at the table with foreign leaders. Foreign leaders don't respect you, don't shake your hand and avoid you because they know you're not really in charge. Yes, they do look at you as a fool and an old man who's not really in charge.
Yes. And let's not forget that time that he forgot who the president of South Africa was after Boris Johnson had introduced him.
Just the other day, yeah.
Yes. So a few responses to a little bit of what Joe just said there. He said, watch me. If you're worried about his mental acuity, watch him. Yes. If you've ever cared for an elderly person that you are concerned for, and that you're concerned that they can't take care of themselves, then watching them is exactly what you do. You watch them like a hawk because you're very concerned that they will injure themselves.
Did you see the video of Biden? They gave a blind man on his arm to lead, and they also put a person who actually was fit, mentally behind Biden and the blind person. And that guy was actually guiding both of them. But Biden was moving so slow at leading the blind man that the guy who was actually leading them both just took the blind guy under his arm and took him away. And Biden looked confused and lost. It was hilarious. You want to see the video? I'll pull it up.
Yeah. Well, let's pull it up put it in the notes for after this segment.
Yep.
Let's see here. So Biden says, do what I'm doing. Try to keep my schedule. That's right. If you couldn't keep a schedule of going on vacation for 40% of your job, then shut up, Jack. Dyer, do you think you could handle that schedule? You probably couldn't. You love work.
Easily.
You would just explode from not doing stuff for.
Yeah, like not only. Well, I couldn't do his schedule because it wouldn't be enough to do.
You would just die. You'd just die of boredom. Let's see here. So Joe Biden also claims that NATO allies don't ask him, what are you saying? Which, given how mumbly and bumbly his response was, I find that pretty hard to believe. I do find it believable if, in fact, our allies do not care what Joe Biden has to say, which is very, very likely. Is he seriously going to mumble his way through trying to explain that our allies can easily understand him? Is that really the tack we're going to go with there? All right, let's watch this.
Hey, this is my dog Reno, and we were just watching TV. We can't believe what we just saw. A blind...
What is this, Steiner?
I didn't realize there was commentator. I'm sorry, I'll narrow it down to where to start at. Sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next part here. So, let's see. So Joe Biden continues to defend his mental acuity.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I haven't, look, I have trouble even saying to myself my own head the number of years. I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly.
What?
I mean, it's just not, I haven't observed anything in terms of, there's not things I don't do now that I did before, whether it's physical or mental or anything else.
You have had...
All right, so Joe Biden says, oh, it's focused. I'd say I think it's, I haven't, look, I have trouble even saying to myself in my own head the number of years. So 5 abandoned sentences. Wow, that's some goddamn focus right there. He is not kidding, Jack. And then the sentence that he does finally get out of his pudding brain as proof that he's focused and not in cognitive decline. The proof that he is, quote, the proof that he is focused is that, quote, he has trouble even saying to himself in his own head the number of years. So as proof that he is focused, he either can't remember how old he is, or he can't keep a complete thought about his age in his head. Not being able to keep a complete thought in your head is exactly how one would describe dementia. I don't know that was, again, so 5, yes, I'm focused. 5 abandoned sentences that he mumbles through. And the sentence he does get out is him explaining how his brain either can't remember how old he is or just can't keep the thought of how old he is in his head.
That was the best take. I wonder what the other 5 takes were.
Well, it's probably 10 more abandoned sentences. I mean, Jesus Christ. Now, all right, so I have listened to this clip over the last 7 days probably about 50 times. So I do now understand that at the end of this clip, what Joe Biden was trying to convey is that it would be as likely for him to fly away like a bird as it would be for him to think about how old he is. I don't contend this for the reasons I just mentioned. I think it probably is as likely that he would fly away like a bird as it is that he would be able to remember how old he is. But I want to point out that the first time I heard this, and for the first 7 times that I heard this, I really thought that he was trying to make some kind of analogy to a house fly, like a fly in your house. And I thought that maybe he was trying to talk about how, flies don't live for very long, and so they probably don't think about their age. And so Joe doesn't really think about his age either. He just kind of buzzes about. And that's what I thought he was trying to go for the first few times I watched it. After watching it over and over and over again, I've finally been able to decipher this weird analogy that he was trying to make about actually literally flying away. But I think it's important that, beating the dead horse here is I did not understand it the first time, and most people only listen to this once. And so, beating the dead horse here, I think it's not good for our leader to not be easily understood. I think it's not good that you have to listen to what he says 7 to 50 times to finally decipher what he meant to say. It's not a good quality for a leader to have.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a job where you really don't want people to not be clear about what he wants.
Yes, like bombing Taiwan or China or Ukraine or Putin, which we'll get to in a second. All right, let's try and watch this video of Joe Biden leading the blind. The idiots, the dumb leading the blind here. Let's see how this goes.
Where am I?
Where
Right
am
here.
Boss, let's go over here. Okay, once you turn around to your right.
Hey, folks, how are you?
That was brilliant. Good job, Joe. You're killing it. All righty. That wasn't the only thing Joe talked about in his 25 to 60 minutes. He also had some things to say about the pandemic. Some rather interesting things about the pandemic, I might add. Let's watch.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
Well, there you have it, guys. The pandemic's over. Woo! Yay! Very exciting. You excited, Dyer?
No, because apparently not everyone has heard the news.
Nazi fags.
Exactly. So, I mean, Joe Biden said the pandemic's over. So, I mean, that's a quote. We're not saying the pandemic's over. I mean, it's a quote Joe Biden said because, of course, we wouldn't say that the pandemic's over. Of course not.
Only president would.
And FBI and CIA. We wouldn't say that. People wouldn't say that. Joe might say it, but people and we wouldn't say it. We, of course, would never say that because we would get banned from YouTube and the FBI would kick our doors down for being conspiracy theorists. Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
As they should, right?
As they should. It's just that we wanted to report to you that Joe said that the pandemic is over, which is big if true. But it does raise some issues if, in fact, the pandemic is over.
Like there are some different federal programs and bureaucracy that are still enforcing mass usage. In fact, there's a federal school program that requires very small children, like kindergarten age, to wear masks every day in school unless they are eating. That's still a policy of a federal school program right now. Other issues. Like an awful lot of people still facing firings from their jobs if they don't get the vaccine. That includes tens of thousands of servicemen across every military branch that are still facing dishonorable discharges for refusing to take the vaccine. Why require a vaccine if we're not in a pandemic? I thought that was an only emergency use authorization that allowed the vaccine in the first place that wasn't fully tested, and only emergency use authorization that allowed them to force people to take them. And the vaccine itself, the vaccine was only approved by the FDA under emergencies. If this pandemic is over, what emergency is the basis for the authorization? Shouldn't the FDA immediately suspend its authorization for the vaccine until it goes through regular long-term studies that are the standard for determining that the vaccines are safe?
Long-term studies are a conspiracy theory, Dyer. I just don't know what you're talking about. And speaking of emergency powers, should Joe Biden and the many governors of the various states that took emergency powers during the pandemic now be giving them up? There has been a lot of executive orders, such as Joe's student loan forgiveness scam, that are based solely on the emergency powers provided for by the pandemic. If there is no pandemic, if the pandemic is, as Joe put it, over, then what emergency authorizes Joe to evaporate $500 billion of student loan debt?
And a large amount of the COVID emergency funding actually hasn't been spent yet. A lot of it that's meant for different, organizations and special interest groups. That money still hasn't been spent yet. So what authorized them to still give that money away?
Yeah, we should be clawing some of that back.
except for the ones that were meant for small businesses that were forced to close. But that was only a very small portion of the money that was set aside in the first place. Now, if the pandemic is over, why is it that Congress is still allowing remote voting, a measure that was only put in place due to the pandemic and the need to stay socially distanced? And should we expect that wide-scale, no-excuse mail-in voting will go by the wayside as there is no longer an emergency to justify it? Or is it possible that they wanted that for a different reason?
Well, I mean, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, Dyer, just like the pandemic. The implications of the pandemic being over are nearly infinite. We just listed a few. And most of them involve a reduction in power by governments at all levels, federal, state, and local. But you knew they were never going to give up their powers. So Joe and the Democrats will try to take credit for ending the pandemic politically, but when it comes to practical government power, for all intents and purposes, the pandemic is still going strong.
Never let them expand power.
The state of the pandemic is strong.
Never let the government expand its powers because it will never want to give it back.
Yeah, but what if there's an emergency, Dyer? You didn't think of that one, did you?
No, I still think that in that emergency, they shouldn't gain those new powers because then they will just be able to use them forever.
Yes. as is proofed by every time there's been an emergency.
Never let emergency go to waste, right?
That is true. And it's so true that even some of the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, just outright said that specifically during the pandemic. It's almost like they know what they're doing. Alrighty. So in just very compressed 60 minutes, 24 minutes to be exact, Joe gave a ringing endorsement for his mental health and declared the pandemic over. What else could he possibly have said? I mean, he only had 24 minutes. It's not like he, declared war on China or anything, is it? It's not. That's not possible.
Well,
what should Chinese President Xi know about your commitment to Taiwan?
We agree with what we signed on to a long time ago, and that there's a one China policy, that Taiwan makes their own judgments about their independence. We are not we're not encouraging their being independent. That's their decision.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
After our interview, a White House official told us U.S. policy has not changed. Officially, the U.S. will not say whether American forces would defend Taiwan, but the commander-in-chief had a view of his own. So unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
So yet another example.
You excited to get deployed to Taiwan, Dyer?
No, I am so not excited to do that.
So I missed
yeah, I'm the opposite of excited.
Oh, that's weird.
I really would like to not, if possible. So this is just yet another example of Biden saying something, and the White House, the building, and the government officials, nameless government officials within it, contradicting and overruling the president. And it just really highlights who really is in control here. It's definitely not Biden. And it's not like this, like I said, it's not one time. Many different policies he has come out and gave a resolute opinion on, saying this is what the policy is, and then like the same day the White House press corps comes out with saying, nope, the White House is actually saying the opposite of that thing. So everyone gets
but like
it's a steward president.
It would be a conspiracy theory to say that like Joe Biden's not the president, right? I mean, it's not like he wasn't elected and there's not like a deep state or something. I mean, you wouldn't be suggesting that, Dyer, right?
Well, someone can have a title, and it can only just be a title and not actually have any power.
Yeah. For instance, at my work, there's a guy who's got a title as the IT guy, but he doesn't do any IT work.
Exactly. And the president has a team usually that he uses to advise him and help enact his policies, but they don't tell the president this is your policy, this is what you say, and if he says something wrong, correct him. That's not how, like, name one time Trump had made a policy and the White House says no, it's completely the opposite of what Trump said. They sometimes would help to clean up his language by make it sound nicer, but they don't counteract his policies.
Not on the big stuff, and that's some analysis that's been done by a lot of other people. There were times where the White House would walk back a few of the things that Trump said, but they were usually like erroneous things about like how long would the vaccine take to make, how good was the economy, things like that.
Not wide-reaching policy,
Yeah.
like would we defend Taiwan?
Yes. So there's some difference there, but this is probably the fourth time in the last since January.
At least
that Joe Biden has declared that he will be deploying troops to Taiwan. And he's also keeps referencing this old agreement that we signed with Taiwan, which I believe is not supposed to be common knowledge if there is such an agreement. There presumably there is some kind of agreement that we made a long time ago with them, but official U.S. foreign policy is that there is no such agreement. So if Joe Biden's kind of giving away the game there by saying that there's an agreement that we signed, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. It would have been better for 60 Minutes to actually interview someone who actually was in charge.
Yeah, like they probably could have just interviewed the White House.
Yeah, they should just interview the White House. It would be far more effective at finding out what the U.S. policy was than interviewing Biden.
It'd be scary to do like a If These Walls Could Talk episode on the White House, because apparently the walls make the foreign policy.
I guess the White House, the building interpretation of that statement is pretty funny and be good to go down. But in reality, it's the group of people who work in the White House are the White House that they're referring to.
Yeah. I mean, if it was the actual house itself that was making the policy, you'd assume that it'd be a little more structured on a more secure foundation, right?
Yes.
Alrighty. Our next story is also about Joe Biden. However, Joe said something that we actually don't disagree with. Let's watch.
Hopefully it has something to do with this picture.
Yeah, well, I just, I wanted to pick a fun stock image of Joe, so that's what I did. All right, All right, what did Joe have to say that Dyer and I don't necessarily disagree with?
Think about it. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for? It's an assault weapon designed to kill people, to defend America, to defend people. But folks, look, it's way out of hand. I've taken on the RNA and I beat them before and I plan on doing it.
Yeah, that RNA, he's taking that on with
what?
Moderna.
I thought I heard that.
So, Dyer, what would you need an assault weapon for?
Defend the country.
It's a weapon that's designed to kill people, and why might you want to kill people?
To defend the country.
And in what and what?
What was the other thing he said?
Well, that's written right here. And in defense of other people.
In defense of other people. Yeah. That's exactly what it's for.
I mean, those are really that's actually like a really all-star 2A response to that question of why do you need an assault weapon? It's designed to kill people. And the reason why you might want to kill people is in defense of the country or in defense of other people. I mean, that's pretty good.
It's nice to have common ground with him, right?
It is.
We're building bridges here. We agree on something.
Yes. So, we actually think that those are great reasons to need an assault weapon. They're not the only reasons. I'm sure everybody else can think of their own reasons.
Did the White House correct him after this?
I don't know. I don't think so. But there's only so many hours in the day, Tyre. And for some more reasons why you might need an assault weapon to defend yourself or other people or your country, we have our next story. Republicans are, in fact, people too.
Are you sure? Because I've heard from a reliable source that they aren't.
I'm actually pretty confident that they are, in fact, people. They possibly even have a real, not a simulated or virtual or hoaxed, real beating heart with an actual heartbeat.
Whoa. Like, are you sure there was this proven with a sonogram?
Yes. Alrighty.
That's a reference for future.
Yes, a future story. Alrighty. So, from the New York Post, man accused of mowing down Republican extremist teen. Man accused of mowing down, quote, Republican extremist teen objects to bond.
So, Direwolf Media fact-checked real quick. This man was not accused of mowing down a teenager for being a Republican. He called the police himself and admitted that he mowed down a teenager for being a Republican. That is, he admitted to it. He said it. I ran this guy over because he was a Republican. So it's not really the game of innocent until proven guilty here. The guy has admitted that he did kill the 18-year-old. And he stated explicitly that his motive was that the kid was a Republican, translating Republican extremist to just Republican because it was his opinion that he's an extremist, and there's no evidence to that effect. I think it is only what only is in dispute here is whether or not it should have been legal for him to do that. But either way, let's continue with the article with the knowledge that he absolutely did kill this guy, and he did do it with his vehicle.
And he did do it for the motive that the kid
he was
a Republican.
Yeah,
which may or may not have been true. It's actually, updates to the story. This kid may or may not have even been a conservative. It's not clear.
Yeah.
So North Dakota man who has been accused of mowing down, and again, not accused, he admitted, North Dakota man who admitted to mowing down a teenager over a, quote, political argument, pleaded with the judge not to hold him on bail, saying he does not want to lose his job, house, or family because of the high amount,
and that he has a life he doesn't want to go to the waste side. You know what? This kid had a life.
Yes. North Dakota man, name redacted by Direwolf Media. We've pulled his name out of the article and what we're reading and just say North Dakota man. 41 was released. He was released already. He was released like less than 24 hours after he killed this kid on $50,000 bond on Tuesday, which is not a very high bond. That's $50,000 is not very much.
It's nothing.
On Tuesday, after being charged with vehicular homicide and leaving the scene of an accident in connection with the death of 18-year-old Kyler Ellingson.
So I want to point out, someone else who was doing commentary on this story said that the $50,000, that's so much money. For him to have had that, he must have had a activist group give him $50,000 for him to have that so quickly. I guess that person didn't understand how bail bondsmen work.
Exactly.
So no, you can go to a bail bondsman. They pay your bail. You pay them the fee. They basically paid back the money from your bail if you show up for court. The bail you post is not money the government just keeps. It's money that you give them and they give back to you when you show up for court. So
typically a bail bond is 10%, so it's likely this North Dakota man only had to come up with $5,000, which you can go with $5,000 pretty quickly. If you have a house or a car, you can just refinance it. A lot of people have $5,000 they can put on a credit card. It's pretty easy to come up with a credit line that's got $5,000 on it if you need it. For something like this, it's not that it's easy, but it's not that it's easy in the long run for you financially. But if you needed $5,000, if you're 41 and have a few assets, you can come up with that pretty quickly.
And you can just compare this how Rittenhouse was treated. He was put into solitary. He was kept in jail for a long
81 days, no showers.
Yeah, 81 days. He was not shooting people because they were Democrats. He was shooting them because they were actively trying to kill him.
And they were pedophiles. They just happened to also be Democrats. Or they were or they were Democrats who also happened to be pedophiles. I don't know. There's a lot of overlap there.
Right. So Kyle Rittenhouse, clear case, fully visible on multiple angles of camera. He was just defending himself and did not go there to kill anyone. And he gets no bail. He gets put in jail for a long time and also is put in solitary, whereas this guy is released within 24 hours and given $50,000 bail, even though he admitted to killing someone on purpose for their political leanings.
And he also doesn't seem to understand, like, that it was a problem, like,
or wrong.
Yeah.
He's definitely a psychopath. He's killed someone and does not seem broken up about it at all. He feels like he's done nothing wrong. So during a court hearing on Monday, the North Dakota man said he did not understand the charges against him and objected to the bail amount, saying that he was not a flight risk. He said, quote, "I have a job, a life, a house, and things that I don't exactly want to go by the wayside. Family that are very important to me," he said, according to Fox News Digital.
Yeah, so the kind of person that you would not give bail to is the kind of person that would murder somebody and then seems to not understand why it was wrong that they murdered them. That seems like the flight risk is incidental. It's not just for flight risk that you would put somebody, that you wouldn't offer somebody bail. If somebody's a flight risk, you wouldn't offer them bail. You keep them locked up so that they don't flee. The issue here is not whether or not he's a flight risk. The issue is whether or not he will do it again, because he clearly does not understand what was wrong with it the first time. So there's really nothing that would restrain him from doing it again. That's what the problem is. The problem isn't that he's a flight risk. The problem is that he's a murder risk.
Yes. And now it really shouldn't have been given any bail at all, because you shouldn't be giving bail to someone who's likely to reoffend on a violent crime.
Yes. And again, he called this in like it was intentional. This wasn't an accidental homicide. This was intentional. He had a clear stated motive about something that happened previously, and that it was his intention and that he did murder this person. So that all right there is first-degree homicide. It's premeditated, intentional ending of the life of another person. And I would say that this should fall into a hate crime modifier, not because I believe in hate crimes, but because they exist and they use them against us. They try to use them against Kyle, and to the extent that laws exist, I don't think that we should not use them. What's good for the goose, what's good for the left is good for the gander, and they should we should throw a murder one with a hate crime modifier on there.
You've just been consistent saying that you think that there should be equal application of the law.
Correct. It's almost like there's an amendment for that. North Dakota man was arrested on Sunday morning after he called 911 to report that he had struck a pedestrian who he claimed was threatening him. North Dakota man stated that the pedestrian, quote, called some people, and North Dakota man was afraid that they were coming to get him. Okay, so he has like a paranoia complex that people are out to get him. That's weird. That's almost like all the left is like mentally has been some kind of mental illness, right? I mean,
yeah. Imagine the precedent of anytime someone makes a phone call around you, that you now have the legitimate recourse to kill them because they might be calling someone to come beat you up. I mean, there's no evidence to that fact, but they could be. I mean, you have no idea what they're saying on that phone. They could be, calling a hit squad on you, right?
Imagine having a political ideology that survives primarily with mentally ill individuals.
Yeah, imagine that. So not only did he intentionally kill this person by trying to run him over, when he came back, he also it was not just like a moment of confusion and anger. He did not render aid while he was slowly dying in the street.
Yeah, he
when
was
he could
persistent in his intent that this person needed to die and that it was right for him to kill him.
Yes, he was there near the dying kid for a long time, taking absolutely no effort to save the life of this person he just fatally wounded.
Yes. Let's see here. So North Dakota man was afraid that people were coming to get him. A probable cause affidavit stated. North Dakota man admitted to state radio that he hit the pedestrian and that the pedestrian was part of a Republican extremist group. So, yeah, I don't know that that's probable cause or just like is the reason.
Well, is Antifa not a extremist Democrat group? Am I allowed to just kill someone who is a Democrat, who is part of Antifa, just walking around?
Well, what did and we're gonna link this to other stuff that's going on nationally, but I mean, Republican extremist. I mean, that just means MAGA now, right? After 3 weeks ago,
Right.
Joe Biden
Everyone who voted for Trump.
Yeah, Joe Biden declared that anybody that's a MAGA Republican, anybody that voted for Trump, which this kid couldn't possibly be a MAGA Republican. He's 18 now, so he's probably never voted. He certainly didn't vote in the last presidential election. But maybe he had a Trump sticker. Maybe he thought about voting for Trump or something like that. But that, in Joe Biden's mind, makes him a threat to the republic, the threat to the democracy, because Joe Biden doesn't recognize the republic. And they're dangerous. It's a threat. They're basically terrorists. That's why the FBI is going after these MAGA extremists. This is all Joe Biden's rhetoric. This is all the natural extension of Joe Biden's rhetoric. This is what was warned about 3 weeks ago after Joe Biden's speech, as people said, Joe Biden they want to say that Republicans are always doing stochastic terrorism. Joe Biden was doing the exact same kind of stochastic terrorism. If that's what you believe, if that's what the Democrats believe we're doing, then they're doing the same thing. And a lot of people said, is Joe Biden going to end up taking responsibility for his part in calling for this when his supporters go out and start killing Republicans? And this is exactly what was predicted, is that you would have Democrats killing Republicans only for the reason that they are Republicans, due to the fact that Joe Biden said that they were extremists.
Yep. So first responders who arrived on the scene in an alley near Johnson Street and Jones Avenue in McHenry found Ellingson, who was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead. Responding deputies then tracked North Dakota man to his home in Glenfield, located about 12 minutes away from the crash site. The 41-year-old allegedly admitted to drinking alcohol before hitting Ellingson and initially leaving the scene of the crash. The North Dakota man said he later returned to call 911, but took off again before cops arrived.
A breathalyzer test determined that North Dakota man's blood alcohol level was above the legal limit of 0.08.
Well after the crash.
Yes. According to court documents, Ellingson called his mother before he was hit, asking her if she knew who North Dakota man was. She said yes, and told her son that she was on her way to pick him up. The longer story of that is there was some kind of town party, kind of a block party type of a thing. And I guess this North Dakota man was harassing Ellingson earlier in the party, and so he started chasing him. And so Ellingson called his mother, because I guess there was some way conveyed to him that his mom knew North Dakota man. And then Ellingson's mom was going to come pick him up because clearly there was some kind of danger to her son. A short time later, Ellingson called his mother again to say that he or they were chasing him. And that was the last time she heard from her 18-year-old son.
So, North Dakota man is currently out on bail. He has not yet entered a plea and is due back in court on October 11th.
So that's like 3 weeks he's going to be out and about. I mean, again, this is a person who can't understand why it's wrong to kill a 18-year-old kid because he's a Republican. He can't conceive of why the police are going through the effort of harassing him, why the judge would go through the effort of making him come up with $5,000 bail. He just doesn't comprehend it because it's wrong. I mean, he did something. I mean, Joe Biden said that these people are terrorists, right? I mean, it's good when you kill a terrorist, right? He just can't comprehend the thing that he's done wrong. And he's going to be walking around for 3 weeks, potentially making these same psychopathic decisions.
Supposedly, his victim had just met him and either expressed an opinion he thought was wrong or wore something that or had something on his car but most likely was at a party, said something that he disagreed with. And that was enough of a justification to kill him.
Why would you do that?
That's loud.
It's insane that this guy is walking around in public, given that he's clearly a risk to the public. but people who took an unscheduled tour through the Capitol have been in jail for over 18 months, even though they are not a danger to anybody.
That's a great point. Thank you for the donation, Triumvirate. Yeah. And that's because we are currently living under a caste system or a tyrannical government or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that we're headed there. I think we're already in it.
We're already. People like us it is okay. It is approved to commit violent acts against people with our opinions, and people who are on the other side, who are approved by the establishment, they can do violent things and say the most terrible things, and they are protected. We do not live under the same legal system.
And this is a thing that people on the right, or just anybody who's not a leftist, is going to have to deal with from now on. Is we are now living with the threat of what I call the pincer movement. We're having a threat come from the regular Democrat voter, the civilian enforcers, the mob. They're coming and running you down with their car. They're burning down your business or your apartment building, or they're shooting at you, or any other sort of thing. That's from one side of it, from the mob side of it, from the Antifa, from the BLM. The other side of the pincer movement is the FBI, from the federal government, from the IRS, from the ATF, which is a story that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But you're getting it from both sides now. You are having several politicians encouraging violence to be committed by their regular civilian voter base, and then you also have government officials acting against conservatives as well. So if the mob doesn't get you, the FBI will.
You need to get out of Democrats. You need to get out of Democrat states and cities.
Yes. So we don't really have to play the game of imagine if the other side did it, because we unfortunately have a lot of examples of vehicular homicide for political reasons.
Charlottesville, rightly or wrongly, was attributed to the right, and the car that ran over and killed a leftist has been cited endlessly by the left. They cite it as Trump's legacy, and one of the few actual likely right-wing, violent actions that happened during that time period that were far outweighed by left-wing violent actions, but they really latch onto that one item, a rare instance, and say that is an example of Trump's legacy. Whereas this thing is going to be completely ignored and not attributed to Biden. All the summer of love and the burning down of cities, the attacking of police officers, the killing of people by Antifa and BLM, those will not be attributed to the left. Those aren't their legacy. No. There's countless examples of those things, but one example is going to be the example for Trump's legacy. So the claim that the car crashed is part of the continuum linking slavery and the Capitol riot. That Charlottesville crash is a continuum. They linked to the Capitol riot and to slavery. And every one of Trump's 71 million voters are expected to answer for that car crash that killed one leftist, as if each of us were behind the wheel ourselves, and as if Trump had justified it, as if Trump had
ordered it himself.
Even though Trump had condemned about that very same event, condemned white nationalism.
Yes. Compare that to Waukesha, which is a name you probably barely even remember. It might sound familiar. You might not even know what I'm talking about. Where a black nationalist last year killed 6 people and horrifically injured 62 during a Christmas parade. To the extent that it was even reported on by the legacy media, they reported it as an SUV killed people. Because that's what SUVs do. They just roll around on their own. Well, maybe the Tesla ones do. They just roll around on their own, hunting down Christmas parade goers. And the media said nothing of the black nationalist driver who had a history of anti-white and anti-Semitic extremist posts on social media, who was driving the vehicle and was, in fact, the person murdering those 6 Christmas parade goers. Surprise, surprise. SUVs cannot commit murder. It's very strange. I think we need to have a provision for that, right?
Yep.
And within 2 days of the event, the mainstream media had moved on and basically never spoke of the event again. I mean, they were probably still cleaning up body parts at that point, and mainstream media never heard of it. Waukesha,
Yep.
no such place.
Yeah.
It didn't become, Waukesha did not become endlessly cited as the legacy of BLM, and no Democrat was ever asked to comment on it.
To be honest, it wasn't even the worst of the legacy of BLM, but it sure was on the list. And that one event, that Waukesha mass, vehicular manslaughter event, not manslaughter, it'd be murder. Anyways, that one event outweighs Charlottesville and this event.
It does.
It was far worse than both the killing of this young man and Charlottesville, and yet it is not given anywhere near as much weight as Charlottesville. Which brings us to the North Dakota guy again. He's already out on bail, which is ridiculous. He fundamentally does not understand what he did was wrong, meaning he is not rationally capable of preventing himself from doing it again in the future. Yet he's just allowed to run free. Possibly kill some more Republicans. Maybe they're trying to reduce the votes in that area. I don't know. And already this story is getting essentially zero national coverage. Joe isn't being asked to comment on it, and the FBI isn't raiding the guy's house or looking for political crimes. At least Trump mentioned it.
And it's not really surprising why, this happened. When you've got Joe Biden saying that Republicans and MAGA are a threat to the country. It's not surprising why this happened when you have Tim Ryan, Democratic senator, in recent campaign video called to kill MAGA. And it's not surprising that this happened when you have another Democrat senator, Mazie Hirono, who on the Senate floor just last week called on Democrats to literally take up arms, take up guns against conservatives. And it's really not surprising that you have Democrats who are running over Republican teenagers, murdering them, when you have a New York City school teacher who was recently caught by Project Veritas saying this.
I'm a Gen
Bye. Zoom up to the right spot here, though. There you go. So it's really not surprising when you have a New York City school teacher who was recently caught by Project Veritas saying this.
Is there any saving these Republican, white guys?
I think they need to go. No, I think they're really awful people.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm afraid of with my white students that are rich. I'm like, do you ever have to deal with this? They're so protected by capitalism. That it makes me sad. So
White guy.
friends in Dexter's who are gonna go together.
Yeah. I just wonder how many
vigilante.
Yeah. Oh no.
Taking people out. The show Dexter.
Oh yeah.
We just need some vigilante Dexter.
Oh yeah.
Here's your community of targets.
The reference to a fictional serial killer aside, the statements Norris makes regarding, quote, white male Republicans are disgusting.
Okay, so you remember Dexter didn't just kill people. He also tortured them and made them try to come to terms with what crimes what horrible thing they'd done, because he was punishing them for something they'd done wrong. He wasn't just killing. So she wants not only for young conservative kids to be killed, she also wants them horribly tortured and made to answer for what she views as crimes.
Yeah, you think maybe North Dakota man heard her call for more serial killers to go hunt down Republican kids?
I mean, the shoe fits.
I'm going to go with realistically probably didn't hear her call for that. But what's important here, and what's maybe even more worrying, is that we're seeing a change in the cultural fabric that's being sown across the country. We're seeing a new pervasive narrative sweep across the country. A new zeitgeist that more and more are starting to align with. In the past month, past 3 weeks, basically since Joe Biden's speech, it has now become normalized with all the examples that we just went through for people all over society call for in various ways to murder Republicans. You had Mazie Hirono saying, take up guns. You had this NYC teacher calling for serial killers. You had Tim Ryan just generally calling to murder, kill MAGA. And you've got the Joe Biden calling on the FBI to at least capture MAGA people. And it's really fast. This has been really fast. It's only been about 3 weeks ago that Joe Biden gave that fire and brimstone speech in front of the blood red Independence Hall. And now we have example after example after example of leftist positions of authority calling for our deaths, calling for the deaths of people who ascribe to conservatism, or at least who don't subscribe to leftism. And some of their brain-dead NPC adherents are now carrying out those calls to violence, carrying out those calls to murder us. I did not think that it would be so fast. I knew that this was coming. I think that was pretty obvious. I mean, we're on a path that only goes one place, right? I mean, we've seen this dozens of times throughout history. I just think that the last 3 weeks has represented a massive, massive leap forward along that path to doing something that previous generations vowed to never let happen again. Now, I know that, how long, or now that we know that the Democrats are kind of have this new pervasive narrative. Again, it's not even necessarily that they're all getting the ideas from each other. It's just now there's this new cultural awareness that it's justified, it's okay, it's acceptable to kill Republicans. That's kind of how
the window has shifted, and now that statement was made, and everyone was okay with the slight adjustment. After slight adjustment, the language has been evolving over the last 10 years or so to progressively move from fighting politically to simply kill them.
Yes. So now that we know that the narrative, the cultural fabric, the zeitgeist has shifted so dramatically and so quickly in the last 3 weeks, how long until Democrats realize that it's too inefficient to go around murdering us with cars and guns and with serial killers? How long until they realize that they need a more organized solution, a solution so effective that no other solutions would ever be required again? How long until that?
Like a final solution?
I didn't say that. Some people say that, but I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. That's conspiracy theory. Yeah. Hey, Fox. But do you know what the real problem is, right?
What is the real problem, Dyer?
See, it's not what you're complaining about, them coming to kill us. No. It's not, that's not the real problem.
Please enlighten me.
Okay. It's really that both sides need to just cool it, all right? Both sides are contributing to increasing tensions and increasing polarization. You standing there existing as a conservative, you're kind of asking for it. If you expect the left to stop calling for our deaths, we really need to take the first step and stop complaining about them calling for our deaths in the first place.
Yeah. I think you're completely spot on, Dyer. Obviously that parody statement that I wrote for you and forced you to read, that's parody. But for all of you out there listening to how obviously ridiculous that argument was, I want you to recognize when you hear other people saying it and meaning it seriously, not saying it as parody. Whether they're on the left or the right or quote unquote the center, if they are saying that this is a both sidesism issue, that both sides are equally contributing to the polarization, to the escalation, they are not your friend. I want you to remember that merely not wishing to be killed or prosecuted for your political beliefs is not escalating tensions. You are not contributing to the polarization when you have a preference of not being killed. There is no morality in just laying there and taking it. If someone is accusing you of escalating tensions and it makes you feel a little bit bashful, like, oh well, I don't want to be part of the both sidesism. I want to be a moderate. I don't want to contribute to tensions. I promise you that feeling a little bashful that someone accused you of contributing to the escalation and the radicalization, that's going to be the least of your discomforts if the left is allowed to continue down this path. If you do not stand up for yourselves in the face of increasingly unified calls to murder you, then again, it's not going to be, it'll be the least uncomfortable thing you do is to stand up. No more are you to listen to anybody that is telling you that you need to calm down, that you're contributing to the radicalization, that this is both sides of the issue. It's not. You don't want to be killed. They keep calling to kill you. And again, this isn't political hyperbole. 4 weeks ago, it might have been. Not now. We gave you 4 examples where they are actually Democrats calling for, and 3 of them in high-level positions, calling in various ways to murder us. And then we have examples of it happening. No, so it's just merely wanting to stay alive is not that is not causing increasing tensions.
Can I give an analogy?
Go for it, Dyer.
So imagine you're on a plane and like 2 guys are hijacking the plane. One's flying, one's threatening, and you have the option of saying, well, they're telling us to shut up and sit down. And the guy next to you is like, just relax. If you do what they say, and they won't hurt us. But you're like, no. They're saying Allah Akbar. They want to, they're talking about flying the plane into some buildings. They're saying they're going to kill us. There's we need to do something. We need to get up. We need to fight them. And they're like, no. If you get up and fight them, then then you're escalating the violence.
Yes.
No. We need to defend ourselves.
Yes. And they're getting clearer and clearer with their intentions every day. Andrew Wilkow, for the last few weeks, has been asking the question on his radio channel, Sirius XM Patriot. He's got a huge following, multi-million listeners per day, 3 hours a day. If Andrew Wilkow can say what I'm about to say, that he's been quoting is, how long until they come knocking on your door? How long until they start actively rounding us up? Well, some of our next stories here is it's already starting to happen. And you have mainstream Republicans and conservatives now asking the question, how long until they start coming for you? And my point earlier is that it's going to be a pincer movement. It's a roll of the dice whether or not the FBI is going to get to you before the Democrat mob does. It's going to be one of them. That's what their goal is. That's what we've seen throughout history. The examples that we have throughout history where this kind of rhetoric, this kind of let's murder our political opposition, where that has gone unanswered and unchallenged by people who think, that's just political rhetoric. They're just blowing off some steam. That has never ended well. There's never been people on the other side of that have just escaped it without repercussions. So we talked about this a few weeks ago, that one of the issues with being a quote-unquote on the reactionary right is that you have to wait for the reaction. You have to wait for something to happen to react to it. But that doesn't mean that you can't be prepared to react to it. And hope that you don't have to react to it, but be prepared for it. And how you do that is up to you. But I would say that it's a very real possibility that, Democrats are going to be looking to murder you. That's at this point. Fox, that's pretty extremist to say, there's only one kid. Yeah, I know it's only one kid. But that's how it starts.
That parent didn't think it was one kid, There wasn't just one kid to that mom, to that dad. So you're right. And that's a serious question that I think we're already moving towards very quickly. We're on the graph. We are on the downward end, the very steep. It's getting a lot steeper.
If this isn't then suddenly, realistically, the rhetoric increase, how Joe Biden gave that speech, and all of a sudden, within 3 weeks, we have 3 examples of high-level Democrats calling for murdering Republicans in various ways.
I just tell you this last week.
Really quick.
I was telling you this last week that in the historical view of events, things are condensed, right? What seems to be happening over a period of time for us will later be talked about as a thing that happened very quickly in a short amount of time. Because for the people looking back on history, it is condensed, whereas we are experiencing it more slowly than they are.
I do think, though, that due to communications technology, that condension is going to be a lot quicker. I think that things that happened over the course of years in previous eras, I think it's going to happen over the course of weeks here.
We're already in the then suddenly is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I don't think that you're wrong that some of the stuff looked at in a more condensed way, but if you're sitting there thinking like, oh well, it took 5 years between Hitler talking about wanting to help Jews not have so many diseases. It's 5 years between that and putting them in the ovens. I don't think that we're going to get 5 years this time. I think it's going to be much, much quicker.
We already had the 5 years.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's already happened.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, get out of the cities. Alrighty. So this was the civilian side of the pincer movement, the mob side. What about on the government side? Do we got a story for that, Dyer?
We do, actually, unfortunately.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah.
So FBI walkaways. Oh no, walkaways.
That's going to make sense in a little bit.
It's like a term I came up with one time, and it was spookily correct. All right. So 14 and counting FBI agents have blown the whistle on the rogue agency. Is it a rape whistle or? It's a whistle. Gotcha. Yep. All right. So Kyle Serafine gave a 2-part interview to Dan Bongino saying that FBI agents, are routinely directed to spy on Americans with little or no legal basis. The Bureau's management ranks are hopelessly politicized by inexperienced corporate climbers, and that hundreds of experienced agents are staying on the force despite their disgust simply to collect their pensions, because that's super honorable. Serafin, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and was recently suspended without pay and was restricted from seeking further employment unless he quits or is given permission by the FBI after filing an official complaint against the Bureau. Serafin said that the precedent. Serafin said that the precedent set at the Nuremberg trials was that they are, quote, supposed to know that if they ask you to do something that is illegal, immoral, or unethical, following orders is not an excuse. So basically he's admitting that, well, we all know that the Nazis said, we were just following orders, and we all kind of agreed over the last 70 years. Well, that's not a good excuse. And so he knows that that's not a good excuse, but I guess I need my pension. That's a pretty good one, right? I understand that, like, I was just following orders. That's obviously not a good excuse, but I need a pension. What do you think? That's a pretty good one, right?
No, it's a terrible excuse.
Oh, it was 50-50 and oops, my bad.
Yeah.
Got that one wrong.
So doing the right thing is hard. But it is important you do the right thing. And he said also to more expand upon that is he explained how that when he was going through his initial FBI training, that everyone was taught. They went to the Holocaust Museum and as part of their training, and they were told because that
they were told Republican voters did this.
No, they were told that about the importance of following lawful orders and not following and setting up against illegal, immoral, and unethical orders. That was part of the FBI training back when he went through. And apparently no one that he's referring to who are aware of all these illegal things and are taking part in them, but are continuing to do it because they want the money for their pensions. I guess they're not following that training. He's saying he's following that training now, but we'll get into that. I refuse to follow any unlawful order, and I teach all the people who work under my command that they will not follow any unlawful, immoral order, even if I'm the one giving it. So it sounds like he made the moral and right choice, right? Seraphin here said, I stood up and I refused to follow an immoral and ethical order. So it sounds like he's doing the right thing, right? Maybe not. See, I believe what he said is true. The FBI is being used as the Democrats' SS to persecute Republicans. But I don't think he left because he refused to do what was wrong. The FBI didn't start violating Americans' rights this week or yesterday or this year. They've been doing it. They've been persecuting Republicans openly for over 5 years or longer, definitely more than just Trump's presidency. When they were wiretapping Trump as a candidate, they were already knee-deep into suppressing voters and trying to use the power of government against Republicans. How much did Seraphin let slide for his retirement? The last 12 years, where we know the FBI has been weaponized against the Republicans, he's been there.
Maybe he was building a case, Dyer, right? I mean, he's probably staying around that long because there's all these bad things that they were doing, and he knew that they were bad, and so he's probably just gathering evidence.
Nope. Yeah. So Seraphin said he believes that he was already a marked man inside the Bureau for refusing to get the COVID vaccine after having contracted the virus in late 2020. So he got COVID, and he's like, well, they want to force me to get the vaccine in 2020. I refuse. And he was getting disciplinary action and was likely to be removed from the FBI for refusing to get the vaccination. And only after he is facing being removed from the FBI does he choose to start to whistleblow.
So what you're telling me is that if he hadn't been forced to get the vaccine, he would have just kept doing things that he knew were immoral and illegal.
Yes. And he wasn't building a case because he didn't have a case to provide. He wasn't making whistleblower reports before this point. He only started doing it when it benefited him because he was going to get removed anyways.
Sounds like a snake.
Yeah. Another walk away, because there's been 14 whistleblowers, walk away FBI agents. But this is two examples.
Should we do a quick recap on the definition of a walk away?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, all right. So walk away is a term I came up with about 3 years ago now, and basically the best examples are usually Democrats that switch sides after some kind of incident where they get attacked by the woke mob. So you'll have a leftist Democrat that ascribes to all the mainstream leftist beliefs and all the wokeism and all that sort of stuff, and then they'll make a small mistake. They'll say something a little off color, or they'll have an old tweet dug up, and they'll get canceled. And after they get canceled, they'll suddenly realize the virtue of the right. They'll suddenly realize how bad the left is because they cancel people. They didn't realize that the left was bad for canceling people when other people were getting canceled. But when they themselves got canceled, all of a sudden they had a deathbed conversion, if it were, to conservatism, and now they're conservatives, and so they've got basically the idea is that they didn't discover conservatism or the virtues of it through like a logical or rational means. They weren't reading books or listening to Mark Levin and saying, oh, wow, that's a really compelling argument. No, it was the left attacked them and the right was the only place they could run. I liken it to putting your hand on the stove and pulling it away because you got burnt. You didn't pull it away because you understood the moral and philosophical reasonings why roasted flesh is not apropos to your spiritual development. No, you pulled it away because it hurt and you had a instantaneous reaction that really wasn't under your conscious control. And so a walk away is somebody who left the left or left a certain institution not because they realized philosophically or intelligently that it was bad. They left it merely because the bad organization that they were a part of turned on them. And then they come over to the right and pretend, oh, I'm a new conservative. I know all these conservative things, and let me be a leader. And my point with the walkaways is to watch out for them because they don't actually have any good wisdom to offer because they didn't arrive at conservatism through wisdom. They arrived at it through pulling their hand off the hot stove because they were about to get canceled. And so in a similar way, these FBI agents are walkaways. They didn't blow the whistle on the FBI and come to the side of liberty because they suddenly, they were reading John Locke or the Federalist Papers or the Constitution even, and they had a moral revelation, philosophical epiphany that, oh my God, I understand intuitively all of these things. All of these things about, conservatism and liberty and justice and not harassing people with government power. I suddenly understand these and have, feel them in my soul, and what I've been doing is wrong, and I understand what's wrong, and I can explain why what I was doing was wrong. No, they didn't leave the FBI or whistleblow on the FBI because of that. They're whistleblowing on the FBI because the FBI was going to fire them. So they're I guess their use as a tool against the FBI is of some value, and we talked about this before in previous episodes. The walkways do have some value. However, they are not inherently valuable, and they should not be listened to. They should not be places where you look for wisdom, and that they shouldn't be leaders in any kind of movement against what they were a part of, because they're just as likely to turn on you or just as likely to corrupt what you believe in, because they don't really believe it themselves. The only reason why they're on your side now, the only reason why these FBI agents left the FBI is because they were otherwise going to be fired. They pulled their hand away from the hot stove because they were getting burned, and it wasn't because they understood on a moral or philosophical level why they were doing it.
They already sold their souls and were willing to do horrifically evil and immoral things, and only grew a conscience to stop doing those things when the monster that they were a part of turned on them.
Yeah. If they could maybe explain why what they've been doing was wrong, maybe that would be something. But really they can't do that. They left because they were going to get fired anyways, and they will then reverse engineer rationalization as to why, oh, well, it was wrong on a moral level, and now I'm against it.
So I'll read the next section. Ponder that question because of the legal ramifications, though I think it's important, because really I don't care anymore. So another walkaway FBI agent, Stephen Friend, a veteran of 12 years, filed a whistleblower complaint to the Inspector General, alleging that the FBI cooked the books to exaggerate the threat of domestic terrorism, particularly white nationalist and right-leaning domestic terrorism, following Jan 6. And they did this to harass and terrorize conservative Americans. Friend was actually a door kicker, a member of the FBI SWAT team. To further explain what they were doing is they were farming out. So the Jan 6 was one event, and they arrested a lot of people who were just in the area, not even people who were on the premises, some people who were on the premises but who were invited in, and some people who were not even guilty of trespassing. Some were guilty of trespassing, but many of them weren't even guilty of that. And they arrested all these people from this one event, and they're labeling all of it white nationalist, right-wing terrorism and domestic terrorism, and they're farming out those cases to different states. So now you have all those fake cases farmed out to across America, so they can then say, look, we have a right-wing terrorism problem across the entire country.
It suddenly exploded, just like the same explosion of Democrats calling to murder them.
Yeah. By doing this, they have created stats of no meaning, and are using them to say this is the example of why MAGA extremists are dangerous. So I'll let you go take on the next section.
Yep. So let's see here. So Agent Steve, he used to work at the Child Sex Crimes Division at the FBI, but then was retasked to work on kicking in the doors of Trump supporters related to activities that may or may not have occurred on January 6th. Because, taking an unscheduled tour of the Capitol building, as Triumvirate put it, that's way above and beyond, kids being raped. It's certainly much more important than children being raped on a industrial scale. So I'm glad the FBI decided to prioritize things in the same way that Jeffrey Epstein might have.
Yeah, it kind of checks though. Of course, the Biden admin would deprioritize investigating child sex crimes. Like, it just makes sense because his entire family is into child sex crimes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say something very carefully because I, of course, would not want to say something that would be admitting to something unlawful and jeopardize my career. So I know of individuals who have, in my job, directly refused to follow unlawful orders they've been given, and thanks to their chain of command, they were not penalized for it. I know individuals who immediately rebuffed unlawful and immoral instructions and reported them, and thankfully we're not punished for them yet. But I know that as the force is changing, people like those people I know who have done those things are going to be weeded out, and they're not going to have someone that has their back who says, no, he did the right thing. And it's just a matter of time before those people self-eliminate. But that's the important thing, is people with those moral convictions, the people like the people I know of, they are not the ones who stay in and corrupt, make concessions and are willing to do more and more immoral things over time because of their pensions. They end up doing the right thing and are removed from their positions, and the ones that remain are the ones that are bought in. They sold their souls for a pension.
Yeah, so I guess to compare the two, so these, at least the first one, the Seraphin FBI agent, he was already on the chopping block because of the COVID vaccine. And so his pension and his job were already on the line before he blew the whistle. And in fact, him blowing the whistle now creates kind of a web of investigation, which makes it harder for the FBI to release him until that investigation is done. So he actually was able to extend his employment through blowing the whistle. Now, in the examples you provided, Dyer, were those servicemen who blew the whistle and reported unlawful orders, were they otherwise going to be dishonorably discharged?
They were in good standing. They were high-ranking, lauded and highly awarded. They had amazing careers ahead of them. That their speaking up only served to damage that career.
Oh, okay. So speaking up reduced the probability that they would have continued employment with
drastically
the military, whereas these agents, they're blowing the whistle, dramatically increased the probability that they would stay employed at the FBI. Oh, okay. So that's the difference of the walkaways. Is the walkaways are doing something for something that benefits them that they would otherwise not be able to achieve. And for somebody who actually believes these things, they will blow the whistle whether or it is or is not in their benefit. Most of the time, it's not in their benefit, and they'll do it anyways. So that's the difference there. And the point that we're making, the reason why we're making this point is because a lot of the right has, oh my gosh, look at these hero FBI agents. See, Hannity was right. They really do got good boots on the ground. It really is. It's just the high up guys. The boots on the ground. They're real patriots, guys. They really are. And no. These guys are boots on the ground. One of them is literally a boot on the ground, kicking indoors. And out of tens of thousands of FBI agents, probably in the tens of thousands, you got 2 that are blowing the whistle, and well, 14-ish. But of the ones that are blowing the whistle, some of them, well, they were going to get fired anyways, and so they're really only coming forward just to kind of entrap the Justice Department and keeping them hired for longer, because it's really hard to fire somebody who's got a active complaint against you. It usually gets messy. So, it's not I don't really think that the boots on the ground are any better than the ones up in the high towers there, very clearly. Alrighty, so I think it's pretty obvious that as you said, Dyer, that Joe Biden, that it's kind of not unsurprising that they would
It makes sense.
deprioritize child sex crime investigations.
Yeah.
He did this for a while. Let's see here. Who are we talking about? Steve?
Yeah.
Steve Friend.
Yeah.
That's fun. He did this for a while, but recently decided that he wanted to stop kicking in the doors of political adversaries. He refused to participate in SWAT raids that he believed violated FBI policy.
A single raid.
And were a use of excessive force against January 6 participants accused of misdemeanor offenses. So basically, what he was saying was they were ordering him to go on door-kicking raids for people who had misdemeanors, which is not typically the kind of people who get their doors kicked in. It's like kicking in your door because you were late paying your parking ticket.
Yeah, it was sending in like a full SWAT team for someone who was trespassing on that day, or in some cases was accused of trespassing when they actually weren't, because they reclassified the area that they were allowed to be in as retroactively restricted. So they had committed literally no crime, and he'd been doing this for a while, and then just suddenly at one point said, I wanted to stop.
Because he decided that at one point he wanted to suddenly stop, the FBI declared him AWOL. Following his complaint, he was suspended, stripped of his badge and weapon, and his security clearance was suspended. All of these actions are illegal actions to take in response to what's IG stand for again?
Inspector General.
Inspector General complaint. Steve Friend also stated that he's no friend to you, though, stated that the FBI Washington, D.C. field office was manipulating these cases, trying to expand the number of quote-unquote white supremacist cases and pretend that the problem was much bigger than it was. They were farming out January 6 cases across the country to make it appear as though there was a rise in right-wing extremism across the country, when in reality, this was a single event of which 99% of the accused were accused of trespassing or nothing. And so they took what normally regular FBI protocol in an event like this would have been, this is a single event, even if there's multiple actors in it. There's a single event, and all of the additional investigations are all linked to that single event. These are not multiple events. And so because Joe Biden has called for white supremacy is the problem du jour of his administration, and it seems that the supply of white supremacists is not meeting his demand for it. There's not enough white supremacists to justify retasking child sex investigations. They have to invent the statistics to justify all that. And so they're taking this one event that happened almost 2 years ago, and it has now turned into, oh my gosh, there's just this explosion of hundreds of white supremacist cases and right-wing terrorist activity and all of this stuff. And it's just 300 cases about trespassing related to January 6th. That's it.
Yep. So the FBI also has attempted to skew the prosecution numbers by, as I said before, labeling people who were not trespassing as having trespassed by reclassifying locations retroactively, which is just something else was released by these 14 whistleblowers from the FBI. So back to these two examples that we've given here, Serafin and Stephen Friend. So both men we've mentioned did eventually do the right thing by refusing unlawful orders or blowing the whistle. However, Stephen Friend refused to take part in an illegal raid on 24 August of 22. Not very long ago. But before that, he helped conduct identical illegal raids on many Trump supporters. He was fine with it before, but just decided not to do it then.
Maybe he started looking at the polls and was a little bit worried about a red wave, which may also be a wave of repercussions and reckonings.
Yeah. So when you stop harming people, It does not absolve you from the many families you traumatized, people you threw to the ground, doors you broke in, property you destroyed, people you terrorized, the people you put in jail for months and months without just cause. It doesn't absolve you of your crimes because you decided at some point to stop committing crimes.
And, I mean, to get specific about some of those crimes, we're talking about directly direct violations of the Constitution. Joe Biden gave his Fire and Fury speech 3 weeks ago about how Republicans that voted for Trump, that advocate for pro-life positions, that go to the school board meetings, that they are attacking the foundations of the Constitution. I think they're trying to obfuscate the people who are really attacking the foundations of the Constitution. That would be FBI agents like Stephen Friend, who I guess thank you for stopping violating specific constitutional
Thank you for
amendments.
removing the boot from our neck a little bit.
Yeah,
I
a little
appreciate
bit.
that.
Thanks for that. But you, Stephen Friend, and your buddies, your other friends, you guys are the ones that were doing exactly what Joe Biden's been accusing us of doing. And you guys were, well, a lot of your friends still are, going after Republicans for saying, hey, can you guys stop violating the Fourth Amendment? Can you stop violating all of our constitutional protections? Can you stop going after us for political reasons, please?
Yeah, sorry. We can't breathe. Hands up, don't shoot. Can you just stop? So Kyle Seraphin stood by, going back to these two individuals, Kyle Seraphin stood by and followed unlawful orders for many years and says he had knowledge of many other people following other unlawful orders for years, and that they were all afraid for their pensions, as was he forgets to mention, but only chose to report those crimes when he was expecting to be fired for an unrelated reason. So, what does it make them, Fox?
I think it makes them cucks, because they stood by after they took a vow to defend the Constitution in this country, and then instead of doing that, they stood by and watched it get fucked by Joe Biden's administration and by their superiors at the DOJ and the FBI, and they watched their buddies violate the thing that they swore to protect and defend, and then they even participated in it a little bit themselves.
Yep. So they are both the jackbooted thugs for the administration. However, they likely see that the masters whose illegal orders they have been following are likely to lose power in the upcoming elections. They are seeing the winds of change, and they're afraid that there may be consequences for those who are doing these illegal, immoral acts. When the Nazi regime started to crumble, plenty of Nazi jackboots turned coat as well and opposed the regime in the waning power of the regime, so they could say, oh, we opposed the Nazis, for like 2 weeks as they were following.
Yes.
But you supported them for your entire career.
It's interesting because a lot of these quote unquote FBI whistleblowers are coming out this summer and late in the summer, I might add. And what did we see towards the beginning of the summer? Well, Steven Crowder, we brought this to you after he said it initially. Steven Crowder said that he was officially calling on all Republican candidates to run on a platform of defunding the FBI. That's something that I and Dyer have been calling for years now. And other, the Daily Wire, I believe, has as well, and other mainstream conservative commentators all across the board have started to call for defunding the FBI or having some kind of radical investigation into what they've been doing. And that has become a conservative platform talking point in the last probably 4 months, a mainstream talking point at least in the last 4 months. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of FBI agents are getting a little skittish that, maybe I'll be held to account for my actions at some point. And, just following orders is, that one didn't really work out very well last time. So I guess, I wanted my pension. I wanted money. That's a much better reason, right?
It's a terrible reason, actually.
Oh, I got that one wrong again.
Yeah,
Fuck.
you keep doing the exact. You keep doing this thing where you say the exact opposite of the truth. It's really weird. So these FBI walkaways, they are not leaving or whistleblowing. I think probably all of the 14, but at least these two examples, they're not whistleblowing because they were morally upright, because they're doing the right thing. They're doing the right thing eventually, but they were part of the system, and they're willing to be a part of the system for the money. And I get the doing the right thing when you're part of the occupied machine. It's very hard, because doing the right thing means you will be punished and you will lose a lot.
And that's a good point. Doing the right thing was what they did the right thing, Dyer. Let's think about it. So they actually have, being FBI agents, they have arrest and investigatory powers.
Yep.
That are rather broad, and of the many things that law enforcement and the military that are sworn to protect America and her people from is threats, both foreign and domestic. These agents had the ability to investigate and to arrest, at least the door kicker guy did, arrest other FBI agents that were acting unlawfully. If you are breaking the law, just because you got a title doesn't mean you are immune from arrest. What these guys did was try to gum up the FBI in a legal maneuver that would make sure that they stayed employed and got to keep their pension, even though they were going to be fired. And they went on Dan Bongino, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, to get famous. I'm sure they'll be writing books pretty soon. When what they should have done, what they could have done, what would have been the right thing to do, would have been to, if they're getting illegal orders from their superiors, put your superior under arrest. If you have, if you're a door kicker and other door kickers are participating in an illegal raid, arrest your fellow door kickers. If you're an analyst and you realize, we are investigating something that does not exist for political reasons, then flip the investigation around and find out who's telling you to investigate that. Why are they telling you to investigate that? Have they committed a crime in telling you to investigate that, and build a case against them? There's a lot of things that these people could have done. It is not merely enough to blow the whistle and then to go on a podcast and get famous and write a book. That's what a walkaway does. Somebody who's actually believing this stuff, actually trying to defend the country and the Constitution and the civilian population, they would be men of action. They wouldn't just do something that gets them famous or gets them more money or gets them more employment. They would do something that risks their employment, do something that defends the Constitution and is even difficult to do. So these FBI agents are cucks. They are not good men. I guess thank you, as Dyer said, for lifting the boot off of our neck a little bit. I don't know if that's a thank you moment. I'm still coughing. I guess we'll do some light praise, give some clapping, maybe a dog treat for doing the not wrong thing. I wouldn't even call this the right thing. It's they stopped doing the wrong thing. I guess in the participation trophy culture that we have, that a lot of them probably grew up in, I guess we probably do need to have a small parade for them to thank them for stopping doing the wrong thing. But no, I don't know that I don't know that these people need to be venerated, and I'm very concerned that what you're going to see in the days, weeks, months following this is you're going to see people like these FBI agents. Dan Bongino is going to raise them to fame. Sean Hannity is going to raise them to fame. Trump's going to have them on stage and thank them for their service. And they're going to get turned into these cultural heroes that they do not believe, that they do not deserve. Whereas people like, who Dyer described, they're going to be suffering in silence and not rewarded for their activity, and do it quietly and not in the view of the public, why wouldn't it be in the view of the public? Because these FBI agents deliberately did it in a way that was very public, that brought them fame and possibly fortune to come. Whereas if you really meant to do this, if you really were upset with the illegal orders, if you really wanted to stop the constitutional violations, you would do as I said, which would be to arrest those people, arrest people violating those things. You wouldn't be making a big show of it. You wouldn't be doing things that are deliberately aimed at you acquiring more cash, you acquiring more fame and fortune. But that's how the current society works, I guess. But we're just warning you. Don't give too much credence to these walkaways, because they're not good people. Alrighty. Also, just one last zinger here is so these FBI agents, they're investigating the January 6 people, right? So January 6 people were largely accused of being QAnon supporters. Well, what does QAnon believe? Well, QAnon, among other things, believes that the government is run by satanic pedophiles. And to get back at the QAnon people for believing that the government is full of pedophiles, the government has halted investigation into pedophiles as who was it? Was it Steve Friend?
No, I think it was it was Friend.
Yeah, Steve Friend said that he was taken off of child sex trafficking investigations to go investigate January 6 supporters. So the government, who QAnon accuses of being full of pedophiles, to get back at them for that, the government has stopped investigating pedophiles to go after people who think that the government is full of pedophiles. I think QAnon's over target.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, for the next story, Alpha B is here.
Awesome. We'll get to she's real quick after we get started here. So I've got your section highlighted there. So I mean, it'll be like probably 90 seconds before she can talk. So perfect timing.
Okay.
Alrighty. Ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Alrighty. So our next story here is about Stacey Abrams and the great ultrasound hoax. It's ultra hoax, sound hoax. All right. So former and future failed gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams proposed some groundbreaking new scientific theories this week about how ultrasounds work. But before we get too far into it, let's see what happens when you Google Stacey Abrams ultrasound. This is what I got. Yeah, it looks like these results below are changing quickly. And then also an ad to donate to her gubernatorial race. Thanks, Google.
Thanks, Google.
Thanks, Google. Yeah, and I'm sure, as it says here, so it looks like the results below are changing quickly. If this topic is new, it can sometimes take time for reliable sources to publish information. Yeah, I'm sure it's taking quite a long time for the reliable sources to spin what Stacey Abrams said. But in the meantime, let's not worry about the fact checkers. Let's just listen to Stacey Abrams directly and see what she had to say. Oh no, I lost my tab. There we go.
No such thing. There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her. There is.
Well. That is quite the accusation that ultrasounds make up heartbeat sounds, and it's a conspiracy of men and the patriarchy to keep women down. Now, Dyer and I have never personally been pregnant, though I do know that Dyer has suffered from sympathy pregnancy quite severely. We do both know someone who has been pregnant, and that would be his wife.
Yes. So I have Alpha B here. So I'm going to ask her a few questions because she is a veteran of giving birth and going to lots of sonograms. So Alpha B, have you had several kids, right?
Yeah,
4 of them, okay. Have you ever seen ultrasounds for each of them throughout each pregnancy?
Of course, and they all look different.
Yeah. What would you say if I told you that the images on the ultrasound machine that were produced were fake, as in somebody showed you fake images and sounds of babies to try to trick you into believing that there's actually an alive baby inside of you? would you say to me if I told you that this was all a ruse?
I will leave you and not put my money on you. Why do I have to invest my time to a fake science like you?
So you would not trust a doctor that told you,
Exactly.
or a scientist that told you that.
Yeah.
Ask her how she knows.
Her name is she a mom? Like she has kids or no?
I don't know, but I would feel really bad for any child of hers because she doesn't believe that they are children until they're born, apparently.
It's like they're talking this in conference or something. It looks like they're conferencing, right? Like the level of stupidity that comes out from her mouth, and the people who sit there and saying nothing and believe in that stupidity that she's saying
is astonishing, right?
So stupid. They are denying science. They're not believing in science.
So,
they're denying it.
what's a few things they do with the ultrasound? They don't just show you a picture, right? What's a few things they do with it?
So they put something on my belly, right?
Yeah.
To find the baby.
Yeah. No, they take measurements, right?
Exactly.
So like,
they're
different every time, and they actually they're checking these measurements to make sure that they're growing properly, right?
Exactly, because the baby is growing and it's alive.
Yes, and you can see hands and feet, and they're looking at those things to see if there's something wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a picture. Like they're not giving treatment to mothers with children who have medical problems that are discovered during ultrasound just for fun, right?
Right.
So, would you say
ask her if there is, pregnancy takes a long time, right? So, like, is there anything else during the pregnancy other than the ultrasound that like might give it away that the baby is really in her? I mean, because the ultrasound maybe it can't be believed or
okay.
trusted.
So let's say, just for sake of argument, that the ultrasound was fake. Is there anything else that happens during pregnancy that helps you know there's a living baby
my
inside
belly
you?
growing.
Your belly growing? Anything else?
Needles.
The kicks.
The kick. Yeah, that is the kicks.
The kicks.
And the scratching, I can feel they scratch my belly.
You can feel them moving around inside,
Yes.
turning and tumbling.
Exactly.
They're moving around inside.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just a picture that convinces you you're pregnant, right?
What if I told her that was all just electrical activity that the patriarchy invented to trick her into giving birth to a baby?
What if I told you that the ultrasound machine that works off of using sound was actually just providing you background electrical signals as the heartbeat? Sound, which is not electrical signal. Sound signals. What would you say to that? Would it make sense to you?
I'm confused.
Yeah. Are you confused about how they're picking up electrical signals with a sound measuring device?
I want to say something.
Okay, what do you want to say?
I want to say this. Like the problem in America, all of these stupid problems, right? They make America look so stupid.
I know.
Like the country looks so stupid. Like if I talk about this with my friends, in Indonesia, which is, by the way, a third world country that people say, they will laugh. Like last time, I was talking about the gender thing, and they were laughing. Like, what is going on with America? Like, what's wrong with your military? Like, it's not seriously.
She basically did her own Matt Walsh "What Is a Woman" documentary.
Yeah,
like the cheese, the all of these names they make, like not just women and men. Oh my God, I can't take this.
Yeah, we do look pretty silly, don't we?
No, that's silly, stupid.
We look okay. Thanks.
Like the country, okay, not the people. I mean, some of
obviously there's lots of people in the country who voted for Biden, by the way, who are really that stupid.
Yeah, I know. There are so many smart people that I know that
Are you close to any of them?
Yeah.
Do we think that maybe the ultrasound machine is the thing that's assigning the gender to a baby?
Do you think that the ultrasound machine actually secretly is assigning the gender to the baby?
The baby doesn't already have a gender.
It's a baby has no gender until they use the ultrasound machine. What do you think?
Oh my God.
That's actually more believable than what Stacey Abrams said.
They
Yeah.
say that too?
No, we're mocking her still. But it sounds believable, right? It's actually less absurd than what she really said.
Yeah. That's not even a real problem.
Ask her what does she think it would take if
You know,
this was true.
People in America are so privileged that they create their own problem. That does not make any sense. There's so many starving people all around the world. Like, go, in Indonesia, there's so many real problems.
And we're wasting money on fake ultrasound machines.
And we're wasting money on fake ultrasound machine problems. She was probably paid a lot of money to
say
give
that?
that speech. Yeah.
And people believe her.
Yeah, obviously.
Ask her what does she think it would take? Like, if this was true, what kind of how many doctors would have to be involved to get this to work? That the ultrasound machines are all fake.
Okay, so if these ultrasound machines that are used all across America and across the world, used for basically every pregnancy, and every hospital has these, how many people do you think would have to be involved in the hoax if they were fake? How many there'd be more people than the military having to be lying constantly about this, right?
Yes.
It would have to be the biggest conspiracy in all of the world. And everyone in lockstep. Even the FBI has 14 people who eventually whistle blew. Not a single person was willing to, until Stacey Abrams, to tell the truth about these fake machines that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on.
It's probably the round Earth hoax people who think that the Earth is a globe and keep purveying that. They're probably just doing double duty. They're faking the globe Earth, and they're also faking ultrasound machines.
This is just as stupid as people who think the world is flat.
I think that there's more evidence. I really do. I think that there's more evidence the world is flat than that all ultrasound machines are fake.
Who make those ultrasound machines?
Scientists? Well,
I mean, of course, they do all of that thing.
I don't know who makes the medical technology. They originally
somebody invented it in 1955.
Someone originally, a scientist or inventor, made it in 1955, and after it was patented by a company that started producing it, then a factory is producing it, right? But it would be the most expensive random image generating computer ever.
Yeah,
if
but
that,
based on science. Based on
true.
science, right?
Yeah, based on science. Now the thing is, you and I believe in science, and that is the scientific methods way of getting and testing information and developing knowledge through experimentation.
Yes.
And the thing about science is you can have something that you suspect because of the most evidence would make you believe that thing, but you're always open to the fact that new information could change your hypothesis. They don't believe in science on the Democrats. Stacey Abrams doesn't believe in science, unless you're talking about they believe in Anthony Fauci because he is the science. Which basically, whatever the regime says, they believe that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, thank you so much, honey, for coming down here. I know you were busy with your video.
Yeah, tell her thanks. We really appreciated this. This was fun.
I should pay you. I'll pay you all the revenue we make from this video. Love you.
You're just opening yourself up to pain.
Bye-bye, baby.
All right. Alpha B, everybody. Veteran mother.
She does exist.
I think, I think it's based on her reaction is basically any woman who's given birth and gone through the process. I mean, this is just obviously absurd. I don't know if Stacey Abrams has any kids. I would have to guess not, though. I think it would just be obviously absurd to anyone who's gone through the process.
Probably another woman, maybe. Definitely not a man.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably. Yeah,
I think she's the man in the relationship. To be honest, that's why she doesn't know how it works.
It's fair enough. So, I would say Alpha B gave the pretty typical response that any good right winger, or also known as parents, people who have had kids, the pretty typical response to anybody who's a parent that they would have after hearing an accusation like this.
We're very soon.
Of a vast right-wing conspiracy to falsify ultrasounds is that it's just obviously not true. They're completely flabbergasted. What are you talking about? But since Stacey Abrams is a fat black woman, which means that reality must bend and twist to conform around her being correct, like a black hole or other massive body. The left-wing media establishment, they came out in full force to try to recorrect definitions in order to try to make Stacey Abrams right. Let's see here. So we have from Glenn Kessler. Before we read Glenn Kessler's tweet, let's find out who Glenn Kessler is. Glenn Kessler. He is the editor-in-chief writer of the Washington Post's fact checker since 2011. Oh boy. What did you say, Glenn Kessler? That's a pretty lofty title. Washington Post fact checker, editor-in-chief. Oh boy. Let's see. I don't remember what FWIW means, but the fetal heartbeat is a misnomer, and he's retweeting this video that we just watched. Fetal heartbeat is a misnomer. The ultrasound picks up electrical activity generated by an embryo. The so-called, which is not, first off, it's not an embryo at that phase, it's a fetus. It's an embryo for like a second when it's one cell. Like it's an embryo for like a single second. The so-called, quote, heartbeat sound that you hear is created by the ultrasound, presumably based off of the electricity that the ultrasound is picking up. Not until 10 weeks can the opening and closing of a cardiac valve be detected by a Doppler machine. Okay, then. Well, so this is Glenn Kessler, as we said. He is the editor-in-chief writer of Washington Post's fact-checking division since 2011. Well, WashPo might want to get their money back because Kessler is what we call a retard. And by that I mean he has a clinically low IQ of under 75 points, indicative of a complete lack of critical thinking and the ability to conduct right reasoning, as is clearly evident in the tweet that he has just made. Because ultrasounds do not pick up electrical activity. What kind of activity do you think ultrasounds pick up, Dyer?
Sound.
Is it in the name?
Yes.
Oh no. Sometimes scientists name things like kind of goofy things. That one, they did a really good job of naming it. It does what it does. It sounds like what it does.
That is so ridiculous. By the way, that means for what it's worth.
Oh. Well, it's not worth very much because it's like, for having a limit of 280 characters, you had an impressive amount of false facts in here. One, the ultrasound does not pick up electricity. Two, we're not talking about embryos, we're talking about fetuses. And then the rest of it's just nonsense. Alrighty. So, Planned Parenthood also tried... I will give him, because the left is going to come out and say this, so there is a version of an ultrasound which does pick up electricity. It's called an echocardiogram. Those are used on adults to synchronize the ultrasound image with the electrical activity of the heartbeat. That is not used on fetuses because you can't stuff the electrical heart probes into the woman's belly to get to the fetus because it would probably break something. So there is a type of ultrasound called an echocardiogram which merges ultrasounds and electricity, and it picks up both the ultrasound and the electricity. However, you are not using an echocardiogram on a pregnant woman unless she's having heart trouble. So, I got you. So you might have been right that a thing exists that does what you're describing. However, it is not the thing being referenced. It is not a thing that would ever be used for what you're referencing. And you being right in the sense that a thing like that does exist, but in the completely wrong context, means that you're wrong still.
Yeah, that's not right at all. It just means he's even dumber.
Yes. So Planned Parenthood also tried to rewrite history to conform to the new reality caused by the warping of space-time by Stacey Abrams' large body, by changing the language on some of their websites. In a section about pregnancy and what to expect during pregnancy, Planned Parenthood originally had this, which I'm pulling from an archive, web.archive.org, or the Wayback Machine. And we can see, if I scroll down here to what happens during week 5 or 6. We see that the embryo is, which is not an embryo, it's a fetus at that point. Embryo, am I wrong on this, Dyer audience? Like, the embryo is the merged egg and sperm, and as soon as it starts like splitting, it becomes a zygote, and then shortly after the zygote phase, it's a fetus, right? Like, the embryo is not at 6 or 5 weeks, right?
I believe you're right, but I'm going to double check right now.
Okay. I think I'm not wrong. I think everybody else is wrong. That's usually how I go about my day. Alrighty, so what happens during week 5 or 6? Again, we're on the Wayback Machine. We're looking at what the Planned Parenthood website said just a few weeks ago, up until September 23rd, so 2 days ago. So embryo is 1/5 of an inch long, or 5 millimeters long. A very basic beating heart and circulatory system develop. Okay, that's the one we're going to focus in on. Now, again, that's what it said 2 days ago. Here's what Planned Parenthood had to change it to. Here is the live Planned Parenthood site at plannedparenthood.org. And if you scroll down to the same section, what happens during week 5 to 6? The embryo is less than 1/5 of an inch long. So that's the same. Oh, this one's new. A part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity. It sounds like a heartbeat on an ultrasound, but it's not a fully formed heart. It's the earliest stage of a heart developing. So before, it said a very basic beating heart and circulatory system develop, and then now a part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity. It sounds like a heartbeat on the ultrasound, but it's not a fully formed heart. It's the earliest stage of a heart developing, which is a lot of extra words to describe what they originally had as a very basic beating heart and circulatory system.
Okay, so an embryo versus fetus. An embryo is a period as that the baby is going through in its early stages when it's developing its main formation of systems like the heart and circulatory system. However, it's time that the embryo stage overlaps with the definition of the fetus, which is the fetus is the first up to the 9th week of pregnancy. So it is a fetus from after zygote to 9th week. In that period, it's considered an embryo while it's forming. At the very beginning of that period, its circulatory system and stuff is developing, its lungs and all that stuff.
Okay, so they're kind of right.
They overlap,
but they don't. Saying. I bet you they couldn't tell you why they're right if they are. All right.
Once it has a heartbeat, it's no longer an embryo, it's fetus.
No. Okay, so let's try to break apart what Planned Parenthood has changed this definition to. So, part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity. Well, what does cardiac mean? Well, cardiac is not a noun. Cardiac is an adjective. The adjective is defined as relating to a heart or relating to the heart. So cardiac activity, as Planned Parenthood puts it, could be understood as activity relating to the heart. And so, Dyer, you're no doctor, neither am I, but what would you call a sound that sounds like a heartbeat and is coming from activity that is related to the heart?
So it's an action a heart takes.
Yes.
And sound created by that action. What does a heart
sounds
do?
Like a heartbeat.
What do hearts do? They beat.
They engage in cardiac activity. They do cardio.
So the only activity that a heart does is beat.
Oh.
So it's a heartbeat.
So okay, so what you're telling me is that instead of saying a sound that sounds like a heartbeat and is coming from activity related to the heart, you're telling me that instead of saying that whole sentence, you would just call it a heartbeat?
Well, it's kind of like saying, changing out the word black people for people of color.
So it's
like
a beat of heart. A beat of heart.
Yeah. It's like just trying to change the language to win an argument.
It's almost like you're using a lot of extra words there that are not really necessary. So,
Yes,
but
yes, I am.
can you just say that you call it a heartbeat?
It's a heartbeat.
Awesome. You're right. I'm no scientist, but I think I would also call it a heartbeat. Thank you. So
I did say that.
Yes. Alrighty. And I already said this part. So any other I don't know, you've got I assume that the kids that she had, you were probably involved in that in some way. Did when you saw the ultrasounds, did you think that or did you know that the patriarchy was actively deceiving her? Were you in on it?
Well, I had to pay the ultrasound tech to do the ruse, right? That's a fee that every father pays.
That's the patriarchy tax. I know it well.
Well, I mean, who do you think pays the ultrasound tech? Like their job is simply generating random photos.
I mean, just a little peek behind the curtain, guys. The women of the world, they keep talking about like, male privilege and all this stuff, and it's because we keep not telling them that we have to pay this tax to fake ultrasounds. And if they only knew how bad it was, but we can't tell them how bad it is because it would kind of give up the ruse.
I would love to have ultrasound reform because I don't like that we have to pay this money.
I mean, that's actually like that's how you would say it. Like, I want not just sound reform, but ultrasound reform.
Because like, what is the benefit of faking this? What are we getting out of faking it? Like,
make ultrasound great again.
How does this help the patriarchy to fool women into thinking that these pictures are their babies? What am I getting out of this? I'm not getting my money's worth.
I mean, one way that you know that this is not true, or at least isn't universally true, is because how on earth would China be able to do, sex-based abortions, so with such a precision if it was just random?
Yeah, I mean, it was like funny the first time, kind of. But now it's just a chore for the other three kids to fake this ultrasound thing.
I know, right? You like once you got one, like, you got her hooked. Like, you don't need to keep the ruse up. You might as well find out if your kid's got 5 arms or not.
Just don't tell her, but I just keep showing the same picture each time.
Everybody's kid looks exactly the same, and just nobody's noticed. Alrighty. Well, Stacey Abrams is a conspiracy theorist. She's on par with the flat earthers, though I will still stand by that the flat earthers have at least attempted to prove scientifically, not very effectively, but they've tried. They have actually come up with experiments, and they've failed spectacularly. They've come up with theories and explanations for things and why it looks like we're on a globe, even though we're on a flat earth. However, Stacey Abrams has not provided any such evidence or hypotheses or scientific reasoning. And so she is actually... There's more evidence that aliens were using the pyramids as landing pads.
She hasn't even fired herself out of a rocket yet. There's no evidence.
That's true.
Yeah. I haven't seen this.
I mean, assuming Stacey Abrams is not pregnant and that she's just fat, I think that she should, on national TV, go get an ultrasound.
Well, on a rocket.
And if there's a fake baby in there, we'll know for sure.
Exactly. We haven't seen a single horizon shot slowly zooming in from her.
Yes. There's no curvature.
No curvature.
Curve, guys. It doesn't curve.
There's no gravity. It's just buoyancy.
Exactly. Exactly. Now you're on to something. All right, let's do our last story. Well, we're pretty we're not terrible on time. I mean, we're over, but not terribly over. Let's do our last story and try and get this thing. Let's get this ship into port.
Okay, so border crossings over 2 million. It's over 9,000. So border officials in the U.S. arrested more than 2 million illegal immigrants now in the past 11 months at the southern border. That's a record high, by the way. Never seen those numbers before, and this is the highest it's ever been under Biden. Go figure. So in July of this year, Fox News reported multiple senior Department of Homeland Security officials who estimated, in addition to that 2 million, that 500,000 illegal immigrant gotaways have also entered the country. So as of July, that would have been an additional 500,000. If you go with those numbers, that's over 9 months. At that rate, you could expect that we'd have by now 750,000 gotaways by their estimate, though it is likely a lot higher. I don't believe for a second that it's only 750,000, but because that's the most conservative estimate from officials in the government. Why would they lie to
us, Dyer?
I feel like they would have a vested interest in downplaying it. These are Biden officials who are telling us it's only that amount.
Because if they told the truth, there'd probably be outrage, right?
Yes. Though, so because I can't prove it, and the only other sources are, just biased on the other side without any proof. It's an estimate because they didn't catch them. That's the thing. That's the problem. Our border security sucked so bad, at least, but probably a lot more than 750,000 possible criminals are in our country.
Don't have any proof that they weren't doing their job because they didn't provide you with the statistics that show that they're not doing their job. Dyer, that's what fake news is.
What I can tell you is that with the Biden administration's own estimate and the 2 million that we've actually arrested, that we have around a conservative estimate of 2.7 million illegal entries into our country in the last year, which is fucking astounding.
And you know where Dyer got that stat? An ultrasound machine.
God, what the hell?
A study done this year by World Population Review estimated the cost of illegal immigration on the U.S. to be $250 billion, or approximately 2 Ukrainian wars, based off the metrics from 2010. And the current census data, which has a lot of illegal immigrants on it. That is to say that the cost of services used by illegal aliens in 2010 were lower because the supply chains were not destroyed. Public services were not also destroyed. And the cost has a cumulative effect. For example, with cities unable to take care of migrants, additional resources are spent on moving migrants out and supplies in. Also in 2010, when there was still a lot of people in the country illegally, but not an overwhelming amount and not at an overwhelming rate, there was some slack in public services. There was a little bit of additional capacity in our hospitals and homeless shelters and our law enforcement and our school system. But as the number of people and the rate at which they're coming over here has increased, that surplus capacity got eaten up. It might not be very expensive for a hospital to go from 90% capacity to 99% capacity because they have the capacity. It might be very expensive for them to go from 99% capacity to 101% capacity, and even more expensive to go to 102, and exponentially more expensive as you start going over capacity.
For example, they actually had to build new facilities, lots of them, to house these migrants. And the government's currently buying rental properties to put migrants in. These were costs that were not factored into the 2010 results because they was based off of a system that was not overwhelmed yet.
Yes, you're talking about basing it off a system where it was surplus capacity that was designed for Americans, where now we have capacity that was specifically and exclusively built to service the illegal population. Let's see here. These numbers are also, surprise, surprise, not adjusted for inflation. Oh, no. I mean, Dyer, it's not like there's been any inflation between 2010 and now.
Yeah,
right?
There's been a heck of a lot. And the thing is...
I got that one wrong again.
So they said this study was done with the best intentions. And I'm pointing out how they didn't have an official source to give them better numbers. But without including inflation, without including all the money that was had to be spent on illegal immigration, that was cumulative and it could not have been predicted that in the 2010 study. All these things could not have been included, and they still got to 250 billion. But that number is much, much higher. And it was based off a system where there was food in stores that could just be purchased locally rather than having to be shipped in from other states. So we're not picking it apart to say that the study was bad. The study was done with best intentions, but their numbers are way lower than they should be. But even then, if we just go with that, 250 billion is a lot of money, a big burden on our country that is being made, exists because of Biden, is being made worse every day because of Biden. Additionally, these numbers were based on the recent census. So it's current data, but the problem was the census is not done the same way in every state, and did not capture people who did not want to report. People who are illegal aliens generally don't want to report, and some states don't include them. So the census estimate of 250 billion is based off of lower estimate cost from data from economic data from 2010, and undercounted numbers from the census, drastically undercounted numbers. Even with those two major factors making this number lower than it should be, it was still $250 billion on our economy. Now, just to put this in perspective, the burden of illegal immigration on our country. Biden's proposed federal budget last year was $6 trillion. The previous year's tax revenue was $3.8 trillion. That means that we have a deficit between what he says we're going to spend and what we're going to receive of $2.2 trillion. Our federal debt, just as a reminder, it was sitting at last year at $28 trillion plus. So the U.S. government is spending money it doesn't have. And the most conservative cost estimate of the cost of illegal immigration is the cost of illegal immigration is 1/5 of the money that we are spending that we don't have.
I wonder if that could be driving inflation.
I'm sure that is driving inflation. It's also causing. It's forcing wages down because there is a large amount of unskilled labor available.
There's a term for an economy where the price inflation is through the roof, but investments are down and wages are down, but the prices keep going up. There's a name for
Biden inflation.
No, it's called stagflation.
No, it's stagflation.
Although it's going to be called Bidenflation because Jesus Christ.
It's like his house is burning down, and he's like, I need to fight fire with fire.
Well, he's just gonna suddenly remember how old he is and fly away.
Wow, what an amazing superpower!
Isn't that crazy that he basically said like it's more likely that he will just fly away than be able to remember how old he is?
I'm just surprised he.
I believe him. I for one believe him.
Oh man. So yeah, it's a story we keep reporting on. It's only gonna get worse because he has no solution. He doesn't want to solve the problem because he doesn't see it as a problem. But it's definitely a problem.
Not until DeSantis gets more migrants flown to places the liberals love.
They just fill up the White House with illegal immigrants.
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All righty, guys.
That was our show. Thank you guys very much.
It was a fun show.
We'll see you guys. It was a good show. We'll see you guys. Yeah, it's a great guest. The host, spot on.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Definitely worth the money it was spent on, all right? All right, so we'll see you guys next week. Dire Wolf out.